Let us pray. God of light, illumine our minds that we might understand your word. Illumine our hearts that we might receive your word. Illumine our steps that we might live your word. In the name of Christ, the light of the world. Amen. Second reading is from the first chapter of the Gospel according to Mark, beginning with the 29th verse. As soon as Jesus and the disciples left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. Jesus came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And Jesus cured many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, Jesus got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Some folks consider it one of life's greatest dilemmas. Do you go to the movie theater early to get a good seat and sit through all of the ads and the trailers before the main attraction? Or do you show up some 15 minutes after the published start time of the movie, knowing you'll probably still catch the beginning while not having to endure all of those previews? If the Gospel of Mark were showing at a theater, we wouldn't have the option of coming in late and being able to catch the opening. There are no previews. There's no time to go grab popcorn and a drink. Mark goes straight to the main attraction with his opening sentence, the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And then Mark is off to the races. He introduces John the Baptist, the one in the wilderness who prepares the way of the Lord. Next, Jesus arrives on the scene with heaven-splitting force. He deals with Satan in the wilderness. He announces the impending reign of God on earth. He chooses his first disciples, and he shows his power over a demon. And all of that happens in the first 28 verses of the first chapter. It's a blistering pace, fueled by one of Mark's favorite words, immediately. The word is euthus in the Greek. You'll find euthus 59 times in the New Testament, and 41 of them are in Mark. You'll use that trivia one day. Taking into account that Mark is shorter than Matthew, Luke, and John, euthus is 15 times more likely to be found in Mark than in his counterparts. As one commentator puts it, we could say the Gospel of Mark is the Gospel of euthus. A handful of biblical scholars think Mark's use of the word immediately may be nothing more than a stylistic way to connect a previous event to the next one. But the vast majority of scholars say the use of immediately is much more than mere connective tissue. The word underscores the sense of urgency in Mark's gospel right from the get-go, and it continues into this morning's passage. Over the course of one day, Jesus teaches in the synagogue, casts out demons, gets Simon's ailing mother-in-law back on her feet, and heals myriad others. Boom, boom, boom. It's action-packed. It's relentless. And I don't know about you, but it wears me out to think about it. Last I checked, our days aren't filled with casting out demons and healing our in-laws, but our days are full nonetheless, really full, too full. Appointments, meetings, classes, rehearsals, research, homework, housework, yard work, workouts, meal prep, laundry, groceries, papers to write, papers to grade, bills to pay, family time, friend time, neighbor time, tweets, texts, email. Perhaps you've seen the commercial that asks, what if people had a battery level icon over their heads, like on your phone? You'd see a lot of us walking around all day in need of a recharge. One sugar-free, 4-calorie, vitamin-packed, 5-hour energy shot can recharge your batteries all the way back to 100% fast. And isn't life better at 100%? Well, yes, it is better at 100%. But 5-hour energy, or Red Bull, or Monster Energy won't help. Richard Swenson is a physician and author of multiple books that address the problem of our chronically overloaded lives. Power, Swenson says, is composed of our assets: skills, time, social support, physical, emotional, spiritual health. That's power. Load is everything that draws on those assets: work, expectations, financial obligations, relationships, responsibilities. And when our load is greater than our power, we are overloaded. And being overloaded for an extended period of time leads to burnout, and it can even cost us our very lives. 26 years ago, when Swenson wrote his first book entitled Margins, the Centers for Disease Control estimated that more than 50% of all deaths were related to lifestyle choices: poor eating habits, too much alcohol, not enough exercise, not enough sleep. So it's simple math, Swenson says. Power minus load equals margin. And having margins in our lives is an essential key to lessening the load. Margin, he says, is that space between our load and our limits. It's related to our reserves and our resilience. Margin's a buffer. It's a leeway, a gap, the place we go to heal, to reflect, to recharge our batteries, to focus on the things that matter the most. In contrast, margin less is being 30 minutes late to the doctor's office because you were 20 minutes late leaving the barbershop, because you were 10 minutes late dropping the kids off at school, because the car ran out of gas 2 blocks from the gas station and you forgot your wallet. Margin, on the other hand, is having time to take a walk every night after dinner, as Swenson puts it. Margin is having breath left at the top of the stairs, money left at the end of the month, sanity left at the end of adolescence. At first glance, Richard Swenson might say that the depiction of Jesus in the Gospel of Mark is the picture of someone whose life is void of margins. Jesus moves from one thing to the next, with someone always tugging at his sleeve. And then this happens. Mark writes, "In the morning, while it was still very dark, Jesus got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed." In the middle of doing all that Jesus came to do, he goes away by himself to recharge. Notably, Mark does not write that Jesus immediately got up or that he hurried off to a deserted place. He simply got up, went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. About that early morning, the late Henry Nouwen writes, "In breathless activity, we hear breathing. Surrounded by hours of moving, we find stillness. In the heart of involvement, there's withdrawal. In the midst of action, there's contemplation, and after togetherness, there's solitude." Nouwen was convinced that the secret of Jesus' ministry was in that lonely place where he went to pray early in the morning before dawn. I like to imagine that as he sat in the stillness, looking at the stars, Jesus recalled the words of the prophet Isaiah. It is God who sits high above the round ball of earth. God stretches out the skies like a tent canvas to live under. Look at the night skies. Who do you think made all of this? Who marches this army of stars out each night, counts them off, calls each of them by name, and never overlooks a single one? God doesn't come and go. God lasts. God is the creator of all you can see or imagine. God knows everything inside and out. God energizes those who get tired. Even young people tire and drop out. Young folks in their prime stumble and fall. But those who wait upon God get fresh strength. They spread their wings and soar like eagles. They run and don't get tired. They walk and don't lag behind. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Simon and his companions realize that Jesus is AWOL, and so they go on the hunt for him. Actually, the Greek word is much stronger than hunt. It's more like stalk. The disciples pursue Jesus, and they aren't going to stop until they find him. It's as if they're shocked that he would pull such a stunt. They know what he should be doing, and it is not sitting in solitude and prayer. An anxious crowd awaits his immediate attention. And when they finally find Jesus, the disciples are exasperated. Everybody's searching for you, they tell him. As one preacher puts it, you can hear them wondering out loud, what are you doing here anyway? Why didn't you tell us where you were going? Don't you know everyone is talking about you? Everyone wants you. You're on a roll, baby. And time's a wasting. You've got a lot to do. But Jesus doesn't head back to where folks are clamoring to see him. He hasn't come to settle in as the local healer and holy man. He's come to preach throughout the region. Let's go on to the neighboring towns, he says, because that's what I came to do. Finding time and space to reflect helps Jesus remember and maybe even reset his priorities. And the same is true for each one of us. No exceptions. Wherever you do it, however you do it, it is important and necessary to find a quiet place to stop, to put down the phone and the tablet, to turn off the noise, to take out the earbuds, and to reconnect with God. As someone likes to put it, it's taking time to let your soul catch up with your body. It's necessary to build margins back into our lives. These are tough and anxious times. For the first time, a major city in the world is about to run out of water. The threat of nuclear war still hangs in the air. School shootings continue to happen. More lives were lost overnight because of addiction. And under our own roofs are folks who are overworked and overstressed and overextended and overwhelmed. All the more reason to stop, to get some space, to remember that God is still there, that God has not and will not ditch us. Rowan Williams, the immediate past Archbishop of Canterbury, writes, usually our thoughts are all over the place, running after this and that and the other. The process of prayer is the steady, quiet, drawing in and settling of all those tentacles that are wriggling out to lay hold of the world. You gather them back in. You gather them into the heart in prayer. And by this, we become what we are. We just sit there, being a creature in the hands of God. I want to invite us to sing a hymn at this point that speaks well to all of this. The tune is probably familiar to it, and if not, it's easy to pick up. The words are printed in the bulletin with the encouragement that you take this home and that you refer to them often. Taking a few moments first thing in the morning or sometime during the day, maybe right at the very end of the day, to read these words might be a great way to begin building those margins. Let us sing together. Please stay seated. Let us stand and affirm our faith.